Hello and welcome to another episode of the
Loom Plotters.
I think
and today,
if I don't say loom, then you have to say loom, and I will say.
Oh,
the
we were
plotters.
doing that. Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm
just messing.
One day
messing
we'll
with
learn.
you,
One day
messing
I'll
with-
learn it. It's fine. Next day I'll say welcome to, and you can say
Okay.
the Loom Plotters.
All right.
So today is a philosophical journey that you're going to take with us today.
Yeah.
So basically, going back to your university days and sitting in the common curriculum or whatever it's called, the basic philosophy course. That's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about philosophical watch-related quandaries. But before we get into this, are you wearing anything?
I am wearing, I'm wearing my Glashütte Original Pano Reserve
Okay.
in rose gold.
The anniversary gift or something. It was a gift from your wife?
Exactly. It was a birthday present of my wife.
Birthday, okay.
Yeah.
But Pano Reserve and in yellow gold, which I think is
Rose
a
gold.
super rose gold.
Yeah,
okay.
it's a very yellowish rose gold. I know
It
it's
is.
weird, but it is rose gold.
So have you ever cleaned it? In the sense that there's this gold cleaner. So the reason I ask this is because my wife.
Yeah, I have a cleaning cloth for gold. I have one for gold.
I don't know
one for
what it
copper,
was,
one
but
for silver.
she had a bracelet that we bought, and we bought it, and she's been wearing it for probably 4 years now. It was a Cartier bracelet, and then we went back to Cartier
Okay.
and had them clean it, and we realized upon them cleaning it that it was rose gold, but when it was dirty, it looked 100% yellow gold. So they did some, I don't know what they do, what kind of solution they put it in or what they do, but they have this free cleaning thing for your jewelry. And turns out yellow gold that has sort of quote unquote patinaed or has gotten dirty with age will start looking yellower.
Absolutely, it can be. It has this copperish tint because there is a bit of copper in yellow gold as well, but there's much more of it in rose gold. So, yeah, and it can change color to a certain extent, and then it looks a bit aged or patinaed, and then you wipe it and it's shiny clean again. That's when
so like the brass or bronze, sorry, when we clean the bronze
it
watches.
happens a lot less with gold usually, but it can happen over years. So yeah, especially when you wear it, especially
very
ladies wear it with different creams and potions and lotions. and stuff.
Well, not just that. So she wears it all the time. So that's number one. The people told us the worst thing for gold is swimming in chlorinated pools.
Oh, okay.
So they
I
said
didn't know that.
chlorine will alter the look of the gold.
Oh.
So that could have been. But once again, they put it back to normal. And my wife looks at it and says, "This is rose gold." And they said, "Yes, it is." So unless they swapped it on us, which I'm okay with as well, who knows? But very interesting.
So before we start the topic, I have a bit of news that I just realized that I don't know if you know, because we never talked about it. Do you know that About Effing Time stopped?
No.
Yeah. They had their last episode, their Christmas episode, ended with, and you just watched the last episode About Effing Time at the end. And then there was a collage.
This is the live
about
episode.
everything. Yeah. You
I didn't watch the live. I don't like live episodes.
I didn't watch it, and then somebody said like, "Yeah, did you realize that it was the last one?" I thought, wait a second.
Now I will go back and watch it.
No, you just go to also Instagram saying like when they said like this, all good things have to come to an end. I have a bit of a theory about this. I looked at the YouTube page, right, and it has 64,000 subscribers. And I think that's it. There's so much of effort.
Well, just a little snippet here. I just want to point out Andrew McCutcheon follows us. So whatever you say, let's say it in such a way
no, in a positive
that we
way.
don't
I think,
piss him off.
I think they have done a fantastic job. I mean, this is I think the problem. The production value of this is off the charts, right? The camera work, the 15 camera angles, all of this stuff, how they produce it is like a proper TV show, right? It's really cool. Everything they do is really cool. 3 well-paid people, right, that have also day jobs, right, spending so much time creating this stuff. And then you have well, 64,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is, let's be honest, is not a lot of revenue just from that. Right? I mean, yes, they have sponsors.
I don't know what their
things,
Patreon is doing. I don't know if they have enough people on the back end. Truly, I have no idea.
I do think there's so much of effort being put in this that probably it is a bit, it wasn't worth it financially. That's what I think. At least at the time, right? Or at least.
Well, I told Andrew at Dubai Watch Week. I shared a couple drinks with him, and we talked for quite some time. And I told him the only issue that I have with About Effing Time is that I don't have the time to sit down and watch an hour of a podcast, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And I think that and most of the times I end up listening to it instead.
Yeah.
And not seeing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that could have saved him a lot of money in production costs, right? Just by doing what we do.
They have 15 million views, right? So that's not bad. But if you think about it, they make, let's say, I looked at Social Blade, right? This is a bit of an analysis of YouTube channels and then social stuff. So they say that in the last 30 days, they had about 1.1 million views, which is not bad. But they say the income of that, the estimated earnings is between 180 and 2.9K in pounds. So obviously that doesn't make any sense. There's too much work involved, right? For £3,000 a month, they can't do anything with that really. So they can't even pay the videographer for that.
But they generally not Andrew, it was Adrian told me that they record these
in bulk.
In bulk,
yeah.
Yes. So he said generally it takes 2 days and they record every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you pay a videographer for 2 days?
That is correct, but they also do their live streams, right? For each episode, they also make a 2 or 3 hour live stream or something. So it's there's a lot of time involved. Involved in doing these things, as you know, especially video work and all of the stuff. So it's not easy. So I guess it's just like, I don't know how long they actually did it.
I like all three of the guys, and I've met all three of the guys.
It's sad.
I don't know if I mentioned this, by the way, but I talked in great deal to Andrew and to Adrian, but I never saw George.
I saw him
never met George
at the Dubai Watch Week, but he was very busy running around. I think he was only there for one day.
He was only there for one day, I think. Yeah. But then guess what? I saw him at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and then I was able to talk to him there.
Yes.
So, which is kind of funny that I told him, I've completed the collection now. But, and not only that, my friend was double wristing on one hand, and he had long sleeves. And he said, George, come here. And George comes over here. And he slowly pulls up one sleeve, and it's just a Submariner. And George's like, okay. And then he slowly pulls up the other sleeve, and it's the Bamford G-Shock. Mm-hmm. And then his eyes just lit up, and he got so excited. But it's just kind of funny for $100 G-Shock for him to get so excited.
Yeah.
But
no, it's a lovely watch.
It is. It's super cool. But anyway, all right.
Yeah. So what are you wearing?
It's a shame.
What are you wearing on your wrist?
I'm wearing my Tudor Pelagos FXD.
What again?
Again. This is my third one. I thought
you sold it. Yeah. Okay, this is not
my
the
third
one
one now.
Yeah, okay. The third one.
But
okay.
This is an MN23.
Oh,
as opposed to the old one, which was the MN21.
Totally different.
Fun fact. I didn't know about this, but apparently we knew there was going to be some issues with the Velcro strap, and the Velcro wouldn't hold over time. You could see this in Watch You Seek and some other forums. They talked about this. The Velcro strap for the FXDs were wearing out, and they were no longer sticking. And if you've ever had a jacket or something that had Velcro on it, and you keep it for 3-4 years, it stops working.
Yeah.
So I noticed on the MN23, at least the one that I received, they have redesigned the Velcro strap. So it's an entirely different Velcro. They call it a loop-in something fastener. I don't know. The Velcro is, remember, a brand name, so they cannot refer to it as Velcro, but nonetheless, hook and loop fastener is what they call it. But yeah, it's a totally different one. Now it's more plasticky. So I guess before it was like natural fibers and now it's plastic. So hopefully that will last a longer time.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I do have some NATO straps coming. So
what is it, 22? The lug width?
22 mil, 22 mil lug width, which I wasn't too fond of. That was one of the reasons, or if probably the only reason I got rid of the watch in the first place. But then I realized I'm an idiot and I should probably
now
wear the watch for what it is.
Keep it, yes, exactly.
No, I'm keeping it. The price that I paid, the deals, to be had right now with Tudor being so low in the toilet, I cannot see myself getting rid of it for the price that I paid, especially when it was fully stickered.
Yeah.
And apparently, by the way, I've unstickered a lot of Tudors over the course. If you've listened to our podcast, you've noticed how many Tudors I've bought and sold. And most of them were new and I pulled the stickers off myself. But for this one, when I received it, I looked at it and I was thinking to myself, because I bought it from a secondhand guy, dealer, whatever you want to call it, but it was still stickered. And I looked at it and I was like, this doesn't feel right. This is like some weird stickers. So I pulled them off and I was like, maybe something they were taking off. I thought they were taken off and then re-put back because the guy didn't like the watch.
Yeah, maybe.
So then I ended up going to the AD and I saw actually two things. This is every time I go somewhere, I end up doing something stupid. This is not my stupidity, but I went and I saw the new one, the black one. The U.S. Navy version of the FXD. So I verified that the hook and loop Velcro fastener was in fact redesigned. It was. And then secondly, I checked the stickers. And apparently now, for titanium Tudors, you have a different type of sticker. It's not the same sticker as we had before.
Okay.
They are these opaque. So they're not fully see-through. They're more opaque style stickers that do not stick very well. So they come off fairly easily. And I noticed this because the watch they had on display, those stickers were already peeling off by themselves.
Yeah. See, sometimes, it's what these watch dealers call a slider, right? When it's a used watch, but it's so pristine that you can sell it as new, right? You just put the stickers back on and it's like new. It's like really brand new.
No, it was 100% like new, but then I thought that it was the stickers had been replaced, put back on, but no, they actually weren't.
Because, you should always try the watch without the stickers or without the protectors, because then only you feel how it really wears.
Well, we learned this from my Cartier Santos experience.
See, you had to
buy
it
just
twice.
Didn't. Yeah, I bought it first time and then returned it from the AD.
Exactly.
But they also had a sticker across the bracelet, and it didn't allow for any articulation of the bracelet
links.
links.
And it says if you remove the sticker, you can't return it, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you remove the sticker, you can't return it. So then I'm just like, well, okay. But then when I bought it secondhand from a guy, it was much nicer. Yeah. Because I was able to try it for what it is.
Indeed.
So yes. Anyway, but I did go and I saw something caught a glimpse in the back on the wall at the Rolex AD, and it was a Rolex Explorer 40mm. The new, I think it's the 224270. My brother has been on the waiting list for this ever since it came out, with zero calls. He has zero profile as well at the AD, so that could be why. He's never bought a Rolex before. He got the offer for a 39mm once, back when the 39 was out, a couple of years ago, and he drove to his AD, and by the time he got there, the AD had sold it to someone else.
No, that is not fair.
Which is not very cool.
No.
But essentially, he kind of wasn't too happy about this. And but then when the 36 came out, he didn't really want a 36. He said he wanted the larger size. So now that I saw this, I asked him, do you want it? And he said yes. And then I pulled the trigger for him. So now I have to find some way to get it to the US So at some point, somebody will be traveling and I'll give it to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a nice watch. I think the 39 or the 40. I'm pretty impartial about it. I think a lot of people are getting very opinionated about the 39 being better than the new 40 millimeter version, and
I heard the other way around. I heard that the 40 was better than the.
Exactly. That's why I say there's lots of opinions. A lot of people say no, 39 is better, 40 is better.
But they're 0.2 mm apart.
The size,
one is 38.9, the other one's 39.1.
Exactly. The
something.
size is very, very close. There's a few little differences.
21 mm lug width versus 20. That's one of the differences.
Yeah, the lug width is different, and there's something else. I have the
Explorer on the bottom versus top. So the 39 mm had the Explorer text written on the bottom, where it says the
correct. That's a big change.
So
I have the measurements here. Hussein, who was on our podcast, who was so friendly and measured it, right? I think he has a new one. So it was 39.7 now, the new one. Thickness is 11.8, so it became a bit thicker because the old one is 11.3. So it's like a half.
So fun fact on this: the thickness is the same for the 36 and the 40, to the millimeter, exact same thickness. Which I guess would make the bigger one wear thinner.
Yeah. Well, I had the Explorer 1 and 36 in two-tone, right? And I really, really wanted to love it, but just didn't turn out. Didn't like it. Maybe it was a bit too early. Nowadays, maybe I would rock it, but I felt it's too small because it really felt smaller than 36. It just wore smaller.
35.3.
Yeah.
I measured.
It was.
By the way, I did measure the
Rolex always measures in a specific angle, right?
Place.
I think it's 2 to 8 or something like that. That's from 2 to 8 o'clock where they measure. Anyhow, it's weird, but there's the tapering of the strap is different because the new Explorer tapers much less for the bracelet than the old one. The old one was 20 millimeters to 15 or 16 at the clasp. And the new one, I think it's only to 19 or something.
No, I think it's the same. 5 millimeter taper. 21 to 17, 18 at the clasp.
Not according to the measurements I have here, but maybe they are wrong. Depending on where you measure the clasp, but before the clasp or at the clasp.
So all I know is my Explorer one, 36 mm one.
Yeah, the 36 didn't change that much.
Insane taper. Yeah. It goes from 19 to 14.
That is very weird, yeah.
And 15 at the clasp.
You have the new one,
This
right?
is the same measurements. And the new one.
Yeah.
This is the new one. This is the same measurements as the Oris Diver 65. Same taper.
Wow.
So if you've seen one of those, how thin those bracelets taper, it's the same exact thing. Which is cool. I like it. I think it's cool. It's vintage, retro.
Vintage.
Anyway.
That's a segue.
Another
vintage is a segue.
Interesting piece of news.
Okay.
If you remember, if you're an avid listener, you might have remembered a couple months ago, I discussed a Rolex OP that my wife found, the celebration bubble motif. We have actually went back and bought it. It was still sitting there. I think the people that come through a lane are not exactly the people that know what this is. So it's still sitting there in the window. So we went up there and I figured this would be an opportunity to kind of work with the guy. If you recall, the reason we didn't buy it at first was there was a small defect on the dial and we didn't know if...
A defect on a Rolex, impossible.
No. The issue was being that the value of this watch comes from the dial. We wanted to be 100% sure that this was not a redial at some point, right? So now, a couple months later, we've done a lot of research. Both you and I looked into this. Firstly, this is a 31 mm OP. So 31 mm, there are no fakes. There are no super clones. There are no replicas. They don't exist. There's 36,
yes,
but nothing in the 31 mm space.
There are fakes of that. Yeah, that's very true. But
not just fakes. I have seen a genuine dial for sale as well.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, these shenanigans, right? I mean, let's say shenanigans. It used to be normal, right? In the old times to have redials
exactly.
and stuff. So it's
but now, of course, when you're talking about an OP that's 22,000 dirhams retail or 36,000 dirhams aftermarket, that's a big risk for whether this is real or not. So anyway, me and the dealer I've worked with for many, many, many years. So we made an agreement. I gave him collateral. I gave him my Emirates ID as well as the Rolex off of my wife's wrist. And I said, I'm going to take this watch to the service center and have them verify it. If they come back and tell me everything is okay, I will come back and pay you. Otherwise, I will bring you back the watch and I will take my old Rolex back. So the guy said, sure, which is, I don't think this would happen anywhere else in the world. Name me one, after gray market dealer who's going to say, sure, take my watch and just go gallivanting about the town. And
I think
but anyway,
he knows you for a few years now. So it's like
many years.
When I had this before as well here with our local dealer who said like, "Oh, take the watch with you, figure it out for a day if you like it."
Exactly.
And I thought,
yeah.
Okay, that's nice.
So we did. We took it to the service center. The Russell Huri service center is here in Elaine, so we went there. And I told the guy exactly my concerns, and I said, "Can you check via the serial number what dial this watch came with?" He said, "Yes, we can take it to the back." He took it to the back, and in the Rolex system, basically, if you were to go to a car service center, they would look up the VIN number of your car to figure out what parts your car needed. So he said he put in the serial number, and he clicked on replacement dial, and the dial that was shown was the Celebration dial.
Nice. Okay.
So
that's proof.
basically, there is no question that this was originally a Celebration dial. So we know that it's fully authentic. So now we know that this is either a small defect on the dial, misprint, or there's that 1% chance that somebody took it apart, messed with it, and accidentally scratched the dial.
I guess it is. This chance is very slow.
1%. But then the guy told me, and the case back sticker was still on it, the guy told me that he thinks, this is the service center guy, that this watch has never been opened.
Yeah, see, I think it's unlikely. It's just, it's when you print something, then there's sometimes a little air bubble somewhere. And
that's exactly what it looks like. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, it happens. It's rare that it happens, but it does happen. I mean,
we have spent some time sending these pictures back and forth to each other, and there are a history of Rolex error prints. And if you just search Rolex error dial, you will see them. These are modern Rolexes, verified, authentic Rolexes with misprints. I sent you one where in Submariner, one of the letters was not fully stamped. Yeah. That was one. There was one where it said Oyster Perpetual Date, and the E was smudged and left off. Yeah. So there's a lot of these types of small misprints.
Exactly. These things can happen, and it's usually they're caught by a quality check, but sometimes they don't, and then they find their way to ADs.
Well, there's much worse ones, I think, that we've seen recently than my wife's tiny one, because mine you cannot see from the naked eye.
Yeah.
I had to loop it. I have the 10 times loop, the Nikon 10 times loop, and I was looking through that, and only through that you can tell it. But nonetheless, we have initiated a warranty replacement dial claim to see what they will do, right? Because we know these Celebration dials are rare. So how long it will take, who knows? So Siddiqui, we went to Mall of the Emirates where the watch was originally purchased. The guy verified, this was where the watch came from. And he said, okay, he'll open the claim.
Yeah.
He took some pictures with a loop, and he said, I'm going to send all of this to the service center, and then they will tell you what the next step is. My wife doesn't want to take and leave the watch with them for, 2 months. But the hope is that they could order a replacement dial.
Yep.
We wait for that dial to come, and when the dial arrives, they tell me, bring the watch, and then they will fix it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's see
Because
what
you never
happens.
know when it's discontinued. And I mean, obviously they still will service specific
For a while.
dials for a while, and they have certain replacements in stock just to make sure that they can still service them. But eventually they might not, right? And then that's it.
But then this is the question: is we've seen this before, where you would have an old vintage Rolex with some special dial, and they tell you this dial is not available. You cannot. So they will replace it with a different dial,
Like my
closest dial.
wife's day date, right? Linen.
What happened to that one? The linen dial.
Linen dial,
You're not
yeah.
finding a linen dial.
It
No
doesn't
way.
exist anymore.
They're gonna. You know what they were gonna replace it with if
It's
they
a
has to.
Pipan linen dial. That's like
So it's gonna go to a
impossible.
regular champagne colored dial, and that's what they're gonna call it as. This is what we can do. For my wife's, the celebration dials, I have a sneaky suspicion it's gonna go with the Tiffany blue, the whatever you want to call it. That's the color they're gonna replace it with because it's the closest in color.
If they stop producing it, which they haven't yet.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's
If
see.
they stop.
Let's see what happens.
So this is the idea of doing it quickly instead of waiting 5 years when the warranty runs out and doing it then. But let's see
For
what they
that,
say.
it has to become vintage. I'm trying to segue to vintage.
Segue. All right. And the segue of today, what are we talking about, Ralph?
We are talking about when is your vintage watch still original? Recently,
Why are we talking about this?
well, there's a lot of talk about these kind of things when you start swapping out parts in a watch, right? So generally, if you have a daily beater watch, like your grandfather's watch, for example, and your grandfather wears it every day, so he has it serviced every decade or every 5 years or whatever. So there's a few parts are being replaced. One of the parts might be eventually the mainspring, right? Which is what really drives the watch, right? There's
the beating heart?
It's not the beating heart, the mainspring, but it's what drives everything else.
So what would it be? What drives the human body?
Yeah, but it's the heart, right? You got the heart replaced because that's the source of power.
But
right?
I see where you're coming from
So
because
anyhow,
technically it doesn't beat. The beating comes from the escapement. So yes, let's be technical.
Anyhow, so the mainspring, is where the power comes from, and the hands will be replaced. Maybe the dial will be replaced after some time. After a few services, you need to replace the hands because they won't stick anymore, right? So, and hands are Rolex, for example, most of the time replaces the hands just during service. When
they're white gold and extremely flexible,
exactly,
malleable.
because they won't stick as strongly anymore because they're pressure fit, right? So anyhow, so there's a lot of pieces over time might have changed. But does it take it away that this was your grandfather's watch? Well, it isn't. You know what I mean?
So here's
if
my
you continue
thinking.
if you continue updating it or servicing it, with people saying like, no, keep it original. Because that's when your grandfather last wore it like this. And I think, well, it doesn't matter. If he would continue wearing it, he would have serviced it.
Yes.
Right?
And this is the thing is I have my late grandfather's watch and he replaced the crown on it. So the crown is an aftermarket crown, not for that watch. So I thought about sourcing an original crown for the watch.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, but that's not the crown that my grandfather wore it with. So in that case, which is the original?
Yeah, but and that's why I think it's a very philosophical question. We say like, when is the watch not anymore the watch? If you have a replacement movement, because now a lot of manufacturers are doing this. They're basically giving you a new movement or a refurbished movement, which is as good as new, right? And then they take your movement and then they refurbish it and give it to somebody else in your watch.
Correct.
So basically, you say, okay, the movement is the watch. So you have now a different watch. You get the same watch case, the same bracelet. Everything is the same.
So all
just
of
the
this,
movement is
all of
replaced.
this is coming
is this
from
still the same watch?
Well, this is once again we have to mention where we came up with this idea of this podcast. And once again, most of these podcasts come up from Ralph and me talking off the record, offline. And he was messaging me. He wanted to sell his father-in-law's. Was it a gift from your father-in-law? Was it your actual father-in-law?
No, it has nothing really to do with him directly.
So what does it have to do?
It was just bought out of one of the reasons was as a memento to
Of your
towards
father-in-law.
him. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So it was a Bremont, right?
Right.
And you said
Martin Baker.
you were
because he was
thinking
an Air Force
about
Commodore.
selling.
Yes.
Okay, that's super cool. Yeah. I remember your wife mentioning this, that he was in the Air Force, which is super cool. So you said you were thinking about selling 2 watches to pay for 1 watch.
Yeah.
And one of these watches was the Bremont. But you were asking me, it's strange, you wouldn't want to sell it because of this connection
Yes.
to your father-in-law.
Correct.
Now, and I responded with Ship of Theseus. And, for those of you that don't know, Ship of Theseus was a Greek, in Greek mythology or Greek philosophy, I should say. It was a story about a ship. And over time, this ship is bit by bit, panel by panel, replaced. As it ages, you replace a piece, And at the end of, time, whenever, at some point, every single piece of that ship
Yes.
has been replaced.
Correct.
And then the philosophical quandary question is it the same ship?
Yes. And I think that this is the one thing that I find extremely fascinating very often when you talk about this as a concept. Historic buildings, right? So after the Second World War, a lot of buildings in Germany were destroyed and they were rebuilt exactly the same way as they were before. They used partially the stones that they could salvage from the rubble, but half of them, or 2/3 or whatever, even more than that, were not possible. So I had to use new stuff.
And then the 1/3 that was there were in the wrong position because they reused the same pieces to put them elsewhere, right?
See, and then if you go to Japan and go to a Shinto temple, and not Buddhist, Shinto temple, and then you go and they say like, well, this is the original temple exactly as it was 2,000 years ago. And you say, wow, it doesn't look 2,000 years old. I said, no, because we built it last year. And I said, well, how is it then the original temple? I said, we built it exactly how it was. And they're saying, well, we're rebuilding the temple every 10 years. We tear it down and rebuild it.
The same thing happens in London, right?
It's like, you think, wait a second, we have this European fascination with, these are the original stones. This is exactly the building. It's like this, the exact pieces of everything is the same. These are old, right? It's not just the philosophy, the spirit of it is the same. No, these are this is the real deal. It's like the exact stone where somebody sat on, and that is still that stone, right?
Yep.
On this very stone, somebody sat and had, his tea.
Yeah, and this is one of the things, we look at, when we go to London and you walk through London, you're like, wow, look at the old buildings. Well, basically, how much of London was destroyed?
Yeah.
I think it was something like 80%. I don't know, some massive amount in the London fires,
rebuilt,
right?
Yeah. But nobody thinks about this in this way. And I think it's like when you have this rebuilt temple and you're saying like, well, no, nobody sat on this bench here made of wood, but they sat exact same space, right? This is where the bench was also 2,000 years ago. We just rebuilt it a few times, but it's still that same location, right? So that's why I'm saying with the watch, for example, or with a car. Recently, somebody said there was a movie and he bought these 2 movie props. Not props, they're actually 2 cars that were used by filming this movie. But they were completely rusted down. They were absolutely falling apart, right? The shell. So replaced, every body panel had to be replaced. And then people would say, well, it's not the same car. No, of course, it is. It's still the same car. But when is the car not anymore the same car? If you replace the body panels, if you replace the engine, if you replace the shocks, the tires, nobody has the original tires, right? Because, or the driving belt or whatever it might be. So, or the seats, right? You can't have, everything falls apart eventually just from time, right? So when is your Ship of Theseus analogy? Is it still the same ship if you over time replace every single part and not a single part is original anymore? Like original as it was built. But it's still the same ship because it...
Well, that's the question. That's literally the question.
And now...
There is no right and wrong answer. That's why it's a philosophical quandary.
Exactly. And now it's the same question with watches. When is this watch not anymore the watch? For example, if you had a ceramic case, in a watch, and it breaks a lug, you need to replace the case. Then, well, you get a new case, but it's the same movement. Is it still the same watch? People would say, sure, I replaced the case, but yes, it's the same watch because the heart is still the same.
The movement stayed the same.
The next person says, well, it had got a replacement movement because the old one was broken, but it's the same watch because it's still the same case, the same bracelet. So if you combine these two, then it basically doesn't matter, right? When is it original? When it isn't.
So in this case, in your father-in-law, this Bremont.
Yes.
I told you.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if you were to have sold this watch and used it to finance a new watch, the memento of your father-in-law would live on in the new watch. Because you would think, wow, this watch I got because I sold the Bremont. The Bremont reminded me of my father-in-law. And it's kind of this long history of that watch.
I see what you mean, but I don't think it will work for me because it's too diluted. It's something that is just in my mind. I could forget that eventually. And then, you think, what happened to that watch? And because you didn't like it that much and you think, then you sold it. And then it's too diluted. It's gone, right? It's just
but
going,
should you keep a watch that you don't want to keep?
No, it's not that I don't want to keep it. I wanted to keep it. But it's just like I would have to sell it in order to finance it. Is it worth it, right? Because it's not fully linked to it 100%. It's not like his watch. He never wore it or something, right? So it's a bit of a different thing. It's just a memento for me. But I decided for myself, no, I want to keep it because that's my keepsake. That's my memento. That's what I made it when I bought it. And I want to keep that. So for me, it wouldn't work with another watch. It wouldn't transfer as that. It would be a 10% maybe that I would remember that, but it wouldn't be the same. So I decided not to do this because for me,
in the same situation, the same vein.
But if it's the original,
I mentioned this.
What we're saying, we have original watches that he wore for whatever decades. That's of course a different story because these are the watches that.
The watches.
Yes, and they are not serviced probably for 40 years and they still work.
Well, my grandfather's watch, the one that I told you about, was serviced. Then it broke again. Then it was serviced again. And now I'm very hesitant to wear it because just by winding it, I feel like any second something's going to go wrong.
Yes.
It's just so fickle that I don't wear it anymore. And if I were to and I looked into going on eBay, buying a replacement movement for the watch and just having a new movement or an older, better condition movement fitted to this watch.
Right.
And then once again, we end up with the situation of, but that's not how we wore it. So in my kind of mindset now, the watch sits. And if in 6 months I want to bring it out, look at it, wear it, I can do that. But I'm not going to wear it every single day because who knows what's going to happen to it, right? So this is another concern that we have is at what point is it no longer his watch, right? So
yeah, but I think in spirit, and that's why I'm saying that he serviced this watch, and if there would be a chance of having the next service getting an original crown, he would definitely choose the original crown, right?
He would not care at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If somebody said like, "Hey, I have the original crown," okay, fine. So that's what I'm saying. It's like in the same spirit of the original wearer.
Well, let me tell you one more story. So I told you I bought my Speedmaster the day that my daughter was born. So technically it was the day after, but what happened was, my daughter was born on the night of the 24th. And then the day after I got a call, from Rivoli because in Elaine at the time, we didn't have a Speedmaster in stock and they were doing the whole huge promotion thing. And they said, well, you cannot do a promotion on a watch unless it's in stock.
Okay.
So we cannot order you the watch because then there's no promotion. So it has to naturally come into their showroom. So then the next day, so my daughter was born 24th of December at like 11 p.m. And then the next day on the 25th, I got a call from the AD and they said, by the way, we randomly received the Speedmaster you wanted. So I told my wife I needed to go take a shower at home. And I went instead to go to the mall and pick up the watch. So I left the hospital to go pick it up. Okay. Came back. very chuffed that I got this new watch. Then, many, many years later, 6 years later, roughly, the new Speedmaster was released.
Right.
And I had by that point a few niggles with my Speedmaster, right? I wished it had a tapering bracelet. I wished the bracelet didn't have any polished bits on it. I wished it had more of a defined dial, like more of a stepped dial.
Mm-hmm.
I wished it had a hacking movement, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Well, lo and behold, 3861 movement comes out.
So the new one
and
has
fixes
it all. Right.
all of the things that I wanted. So what did I do? I went and I bought a new one. And I told my wife, okay, I'm going to try both of them out. And we'll see. I will sell one.
Okay.
And so I was wearing the new one and I was like, this is so cool. This is so cool. I loved it. But in the back of my mind, this whole Ship of Theseus thing was coming up. Is I bought this one essentially the day my daughter was born. That is her birth watch. You cannot get a more birth watch than that. So if in 18 years' time, I say, here's this watch that I bought the day you were born.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yes.
On the other, because we talk about this, everyone wants to buy a birth year watch. What the hell for? Right? Okay, you want a watch that's maybe sold or maybe made, but who knows, right? You can go in and I was born in 85. Let's find a 1985 watch. Okay, I found one from Rolex. It was stamped 1985, but it could have been made in 84.
Sure.
Who knows?
Yeah, but I think it's
just because it was sold in 85 doesn't mean anything.
And this is what I found a really, really nice watch for. And I'll come back to your watch. For my sister, born at the year she was born. And then my wife said, but will she care that this is the watch from her birth year? And I thought, maybe not. So maybe it's completely irrelevant. She's like, I just have a nice watch, right? And I thought, maybe that's because I wanted to have one, a birth year watch, and then I also figured out, like, do I really need that, or do I just want to have a nice watch that is just a nice vintage watch? Does it have to be really that year, or is it okay if it's like 3 months off, right? So I have one now, which is my Omega
And then at that point,
Seamaster.
do you want a birth year watch or do you want a date watch?
Yeah, it's not actually, it's like it was delivered at March 9. It's just I think 5 months after my birthday. My birthday is in October, so it was delivered the following year in March. Yeah, so it's fine,
but
right?
It's not your birth year.
But it's not my birth year. So if it would be 5 months earlier, I would say, oh, great, it's my birth year still. But
it makes zero sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, hey, come on, I just treat this now as my birth year watch, even though it's not technically.
Exactly.
It's in the range.
So anyway, going back to this. So my issue was, my mental issue was, my friend JC was telling me this. He said he was the one that brought up the whole Ship of Theseus thing. He said, and I told him, if I sell this original watch to buy the new one, I wouldn't have bought the new one if I didn't have the old one. Therefore, the memento of my daughter's birth year watch goes into the new one. And he was saying that's a little sketchy. That's not exactly how it works.
Nah.
But,
No, it's a different...
anyway,
yeah. But you did.
I then said, let the money do the talking.
Okay.
So I took both watches to a number of dealers and I said, give me a price. And everyone lowballed beyond belief, actually, the old watch.
Yeah.
And everyone gave me a very good price for the new one.
Yeah.
To the point where I broke even on the new one, even though I wore it for a little while. This was literally days after the new one came out. So I said, okay, well, I guess, the higher authority, the higher, whatever
forces
you want to call
in the
it,
universe have spoken.
Forces in the universe have spoken. And I kept the old one.
Yeah.
And with very minimal, loss on the new one. So in retrospect, looking back at it, I have since removed the bracelet from the watch. I wear it now on a NATO strap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of realized if I had both on a NATO strap, you'd be hard pressed to find the difference between the two watches, but one remains that same, one.
Yeah.
In addition, the other thing that kind of dawned on me is the 1861 movement was a direct descendant from the 361 movement, which was then the 861, which then became the 1861. The 3861, on the other hand, is now no longer that direct descendant. They have added the George Daniels created the
coaxial
escapement, the coaxial escapement, and a bunch of other things. The hacking is not original anymore. So there's a lot of things that they changed where they now no longer state that it is a evolution of that movement. So I have, in my opinion, the original evolution.
Yeah, I think you did the right thing, because you have now the warranty card written with your daughter's birthday on it. Oh, let's say within 24 hours.
The day after, but within 24 hours, correct, yes. Now, I have another interesting Speedmaster related story. In 2019, I went to the last Baselworld. And this is going back to birth year watches. We were wandering around Zurich. And in Zurich, you walk through these little tiny streets, and there's these little watch shops everywhere. And I look in a window, and I saw a Speedmaster in one window. And I walked in, and I was very interested. Like, oh, cool. Tell me, you could clearly see it was patinaed. The lume was very yellowed. So I asked him, like, what's the story with this watch? And he said, oh, it's 1985. And I was like, birth year, very interesting. And I said, do you have the paperwork? And he said, actually, I just received this back yesterday from Omega Service with an extract from the archives. It was purchased in Zurich on my birthday, November 25, 1985.
The sign of the universe again.
And he wanted a fairly reasonable price. He wanted 6,000 Swiss francs at the time, which is what, like 20,000 dirhams-ish. Now that watch would be worth much, much more, I think. The market has kind of pushed everything up. But the thing was, I had my Speedmaster already, which was roughly the exact same thing. And I said, no, I got to pass. I don't have 6,000 Swiss francs to drop on the same exact watch I already own.
Yeah, that's.
But I mean, that is a birth year watch. The same day of my birth. So in retrospect, do I regret not buying it? Kind of still no, because I'd rather spend that money on a different watch.
Yeah.
Right? To have two of the exact same watches.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, after my wife mentioned that, it's like, does it really matter that much? And I thought, like, actually, it's just one other thing that we make up that we might think are very important, but then are they really? So it's like, Exactly. And then when you go into, they really dive into it, like, how close to your birthday does it have to be? When was it produced? How long was it at the dealer?
I don't think I'm ever going to find anything closer than that. That was kind of the golden standard.
Yeah.
However, at that same time, I think if you are looking to buy a vintage watch and you're already in the market for that specific model, and then you find one that is on your birthday or on your birth year, that could be an added kind of plus, right? That could be like, oh, this is neat. But for me, you shouldn't go out and buy a watch just because it's your birth year, right? That's stupid. However, if you already, once again, want to buy a watch, let's say I'm looking for a Submariner, right?
Yeah.
A vintage Submariner, and I find one that happens to be my birth year, that could be that added little, lemon zest on top that would make it that much more special. But I wouldn't make it the focus of your, search.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we have covered all areas now from when is original watch still original. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. People have different definitions. If you had a
so
hard,
basically
hard
another 50 minutes have passed and you've learned nothing.
Yes, and
thank you for tuning in.
If Martin at some stage has a heart transplant, is he still the same person? Or is he still the original?
What about
Martin?
What about? I was just reading up, by the way, the other day on lobotomies.
Oh no!
Remember lobotomies?
No, that I don't really even remember that. That's such a sad.
Well, not remember. I mean, this
story.
was a thing. So this is apparently
cannot
when
remember
somebody
much
had some mental conditions
before my lobotomy.
they would, yeah. So they would I don't know, remove some synapses, some neuron, whatever they're called, synapses, right, where the neurons travel from the brain, in hopes of curing the person of some kind of issue. Now, of course, I don't know how many of these have been done, but the last one was done in like 1976. Point of story is they all were, of course, this is where the term lobotomized comes from, because these people were basically, from that moment forward, just vegetables, essentially, right? So in this case, that is one extent where you replace something or change something, and it is not the same, right? So, this is arguing your heart transplant situation, right?
Maybe it's just like if you have a mental issue, if you have a mental illness, for example, let's say you are bipolar and you take medication for it, who is the real person?
No, bipolar is you're thinking about multiple personality disorder.
No, I'm saying just bipolar is also a condition, right?
I know, but bipolar, you don't get too much of a difference, right? When you're talking about multiple personalities, you have two distinct individuals or more. And then you can start saying, who's the original, right?
Yeah,
who are you going to knock
exactly,
out?
when you say like, oh.
So,
but anyhow, see, I think it's from a watch perspective, I'm always feeling that if you want to have a watch in this, I wouldn't say it's your definition of what you want. If you're saying, I want the watch as original as possible, as it was made in whatever, 1950 or 1960, I understand that. But if you're saying like, I want this watch from it's a 1950 model, and it had its life, right? It got serviced, it got beat up,
yep.
It got replaced. It has a new dial. It has a new sapphire crystal or plastic crystal, whatever it was at the time. It got polished. It got all of these little things, but it had its life, right? And then you say, and this is basically a next episode or next question could be, what do you care? This is not your story. Your story starts when you have the watch. Are we really caring that much for all of the old scratches, or is it okay to just polish it and say like, but now I am making my own story with this watch, so I'm adding my own scratches, so I have no problems polishing it. Because
so Ralph,
a lot of vintage people say like,
oh my God, if you buy a computer, which you told me you bought that desk, the workstation from who knows what company that was going under.
Architectural
Did
company,
you format it and set it back to factory standards? Or did you continue using it as is?
I replaced the hard drive. I replaced the CPU. I replaced the RAM. I replaced the graphics card. So basically, the motherboard is the same. The power, I think, even the power supply is the same, but the case is the same. But in the computer, you upgrade things. Why not, right?
So this is another analogy. It doesn't matter in a computing world. No one cares. This is not a thing in computing, right?
You improved it, right?
Everything newer, bigger, always better, right? In watches, for some reason, we are more sentimental. And that's where the problem comes. If we were not sentimental creatures, none of this would matter, and we would not be talking about this. I think
because we think that if you have a swatch and nobody will ask you, is this still the original battery? Right? But if it's a mechanical watch, the mainspring is basically like a battery. Eventually it needs replacement. So why is it so important that this piece is still original?
Because we still think, I think this remains in our mind, that watches are not needed. You don't need to have a watch. They are superfluous gadgets, little toys on your wrist. A quartz watch, on the other hand, could be a tool, a real tool, right? Somebody could need it. But like the mechanical watches we know are 99.9% superfluous. And that, when you start getting to this idea of something is superfluous, a true luxury, quote unquote, then you can start making up stupid rules because it's not something you need anyway.
But
right? If you're talking about, let's go into cars back again. You mentioned I buy an old 1965 Porsche 911.
Yeah.
I want it either original or restored or, something there. However, your 2000 and God knows how many Touareg.
Yeah.
Would you like it in its original condition with no service done?
No.
Or would you like to actually use it?
Yes, exactly. That's a question. If you want to drive your historic car, well, then you might need to replace the panels. You need to replace the engine or rework the engine or rebuild the engine or something. You need to replace the shocks. You need to replace certain parts of the seats, the cockpit and other things, the steering wheel. There's a lot of things that you might have to replace. But the question is, do you want it to look as original as possible? Then you get it restored. Yeah. Right? You restore it to this original
form. This is so
form,
strange. Like, you don't say to yourself, my spark plugs don't work anymore, but they're original, so I don't want to replace them.
Exactly. So you restore the car to its original condition.
Glory.
Right? Like it was sold in the 70s. And then you drive it today like it was new in the 70s. Yes. And that's, I think, the spirit, right? And that's why I think...
And that's...
So
no. The new thing, by the way, is a lot of people have started doing this. They find these barn finds, and they do just enough to get the car going again, right? So the bare minimum that you can do to make the car roadworthy, and then everything else they leave.
Yeah, but
so still rusted, still old looking.
Again,
seats are still worn.
I think these are two things. If you want this car as an investment, or if it's something that you want to fulfill your dream. And if your dream is to run around and drive this car for 10 years, you probably do a lot more than just keep it as original as possible. You keep it as functional as possible, right? So that means maybe replacing a bit more. But again, there's no rules. It's just like if you considering the retention of value or the future value, you might want to keep also your watches as original as possible. But if you want to just enjoy the watch,
wear them, and use them, then you have to service them. For the rest of your life.
You just service it and go on, because that's what the watch would have done anyways.
That's a very good point. I think that's a very good kind of takeaway from this. Once again, if you're looking at buying that bajillion dollar mill sub or Paul Newman Daytona, guarantee you Paul Newman serviced his Daytona. He didn't care. No. Probably serviced it at some shady places as well. He didn't send it to Switzerland, I think. So the engraving on the back was probably not done by a master craftsman. It was done probably on a bench somewhere at some racetrack. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, look, you've seen the 5 years with a toothpick.
I think he did it himself. I don't know, but anyway. So once again, those are the two camps. I don't like this idea of investment pieces. We want our watches to be worn. So beat them up, service them, do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, and don't think about the future value of the watch. It is there for your enjoyment. In all intents and purposes. Forget the Ship of Theseus. It can be an entirely different watch as long as it makes you happy.
Yeah, and if the spirit for you lives on in that watch, right? If it is for you the same watch, then that's all that matters.
And one caveat here is that with my daughter's birth year watch and similar other pieces, if it's not replaceable, then you should put some heavier gravity onto the situation, right? So I told you this as well. Don't sell something you cannot just go and buy back. If it's one of one, one of 50, you should probably think about it twice before you pull the trigger.
You should always do that when you have something that's really, really hard to replace, right? Then that's definitely something where, if you...
Yeah, but otherwise don't let the sentimental aspect, cloud your judgment. If you want to sell your daughter's birth year watch for something else, do it. The memento can still live on. You can still look at the watch and say, wow, I bought this because I bought that.
If that works for you.
Yep, exactly.
Exactly.
So,
all right. And on that bombshell.
It's time to end.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. And we
Yes.
hear you
We'll
next
see
week.
you next
Yeah.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.